Okay, guys, we're back here with key issue number two, continuing to talk about site and situation factors within industry. Key issue one, we kind of summed up the whole concept of site, talking about the characteristics of a place and how these characteristics can coincide best with the three factors of production in land, labor, and capital. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about situation. A lot more to talk about with situation, because when we refer to situation, we're really talking about two things, and I want you to get both of these definitions down. When we talk about situation, we're talking about the location of a place in relation to another place, okay? So the location of one place in relation to another place. That's what situation is. And so when we talked about site before, we gave you an example of the characteristics of a specific location, you guys. Again, we could talk to about near a body of water, for example. Well, the situation, when we're talking about this, the location of a place in relation to another place, perhaps it's a great trade location. That this city is a great port city or a great trading city because it's located between two large civilizations, we could say, or it's found along a major traveled body of water. So again, we're talking about the location of a place in relation to another place or to other places. In regards to industry, there's where we need to add on to it. So you should have already wrote down that situation is the location of a place in relation to another place and how it relates to transportation of products from one area to another area. And that's the industrial or the manufacturing piece that goes with it. So now we're talking about location of a place and how it relates to transportation of products from one area to another area. One of the goals that manufacturers or industrialists have, you guys, and again, to them, it's all about maximizing their profits. You may not like that, or you may not agree with that, but that is the goal of the manufacturers, to maximize their profits. And so what they're going to do is they're going to try to establish a location that's going to serve them best in regards to cost factors. So next to goals of manufacturer, you guys, or the manufacturer, I should put down, is that they're going to try to establish a location that will meet their needs best in regards to cost management. Okay, and so they're going to try to meet their needs best in regards to cost management. And in parentheses, you can kind of say transportation, because that's really what we're going to be talking about. Because we already mentioned that we're talking about the transportation of one product in an area to another area. So we're talking about the movement of this product. Now, one of the things that you have to consider when you're the industrialist or when you are the manufacturer is you have to determine which is going to cost you more, because there's two different types of things that they have to look at. They have to look at inputs, and anytime they talk about inputs, they're talking about all the materials that are used to create a manufactured product, okay? So when we talk about input, we're talking about all the things that you have to put in to create a finished manufactured product. Your book sums it up by, it says, inputs are the providers of minerals, materials, energy, machinery, and any other supporting service to create the manufactured product. So essentially, I'm going to tell you that inputs are everything that's put in to the making of the final manufactured product, the final product that you're trying to create. So it's all the ingredients of everything that goes in to the finished product, to the finished manufactured product. Markets, on the other hand, you guys, these are the consumers, okay? When we refer to the markets, we're talking about the location of the consumers who are willing to buy the finished manufactured product. So when we talk about markets, we're talking about these are places where the consumers are, you guys, who are willing to buy the manufactured product. So location of where the consumers are, and these are the people who are willing to buy the manufactured product. So what we have to consider with situation is, do we align ourselves closer to the more populated market, or to where all the consumers are that are willing to buy the manufactured product, or do you set up shop near the places that are going to give you the ingredients that are necessary and need to be brought in order to make the product in the first place? That's kind of the million-dollar question, and that's what you're trying to use situation for. Now, situation, when you do it, when you're thinking in that perspective, are you going to be closer in proximity to the materials needed to make the product, or are you going to be closer to those willing to buy your finished product? That's the big debate that's going on. And what you have to consider is two things. Is your product basically connected to bulk reducing industry, or is your product connected to bulk gaining industry? Don't let the terminology scare you guys. It's actually pretty straightforward. When we talk about bulk reducing industry, we are talking about that the finished product has less weight than the amount of supplies that are shipped in to make it. So the finished product has less weight or has less volume, is what people tend to say. The finished product has less weight or less volume than the amount of supplies that are shipped in to build it. So in other words, you guys, there's going to be a greater mass of supplies brought in to make this product than what the size of the product will be when it is actually completed and done. So there's going to be a lot more in regards to the volume of supplies that are necessary and needed to be brought in than in regards to the amount of transportation needed to get your product to the closer to the market. So when we talk about bulk reducing industry, last time I'll say it just so you're not confused, this is the type of industry that relocates itself closer to the supplier of products rather than to the market. So again, when we talk about bulk reducing, we're essentially talking about, again, that this is the type of industry that's going to locate itself closer to the supplier of products because, again, when we talk about bulk reducing, it's going to be greater in mass that way. So again, that's what we're talking about. Bulk reducing industry, a couple different things that you put down. One, the finished product is going to have less weight or volume than the amount of supplies that are going to be brought in to produce that finished product, you guys. So what you want to do is you want to locate your factory closer to the supplies and the ingredients needed to make your finished product than to the market itself. That's what we're essentially telling you right there. Looking at page, and that's what we mean by bulk reducing. You're going to locate your factories closer to the supplies that you need rather than the future consumers who will buy your finished product because there's a greater amount of volume that needed to be gathered for the supplies than the actual process of sending your finished product to market. Mineral wealth. The copper industry is a good example of this. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about the copper industry a little bit later on, but on 398 and 399, you can see the distribution of minerals here on 398 and 399, where a majority of the large minerals are placed. And so you can look at the distribution of minerals. And so what ends up happening, you guys, is some of these factories are in some of these locations. Remember, we talked about North America as the 3 industrial regions. We talked about North America. We also talked about Asia as well, you guys. You're going to see certain factories popping up for certain products, you guys, because the amount of minerals and materials that they need, it's best to be closer to the ingredients needed to make the finished product than the actual market itself. Please take the time, you guys, and I think your key issue packet will want you to fill these out. Please take the time to look at all these different types of minerals here, you guys, in red, written in red right here, and it talks about each mineral a little bit, tells you what they're used for. I'm sure you're going to have to kind of know a couple of these as we go. And your key issue packet will have you fill that out. So we won't take the time in the podcast to do that because they're really spelled out quite easily for you in regards to the red letters here representing each one of the minerals and that you can read about and find out about on your own. Later on, we'll talk about the copper industry and really show you how that's kind of primarily a bulk reducing industry, meaning that the majority of the copper industry is going to be next to the copper mines, for example. It's not going to be far from there because, again, there's so much taken in weight or volume with the ingredients in comparison to the amount that it would take to transport the finished product to the market. So greater mass or volume with the supplies needed versus a greater mass or volume with the actual product that you're producing. Okay, so getting back to that piece right there, make sure you focus on those minerals, you guys, on 398. Look at the distribution, read about them a little bit, familiarize yourself with them. Bulk gaining industry is going to be just the opposite of bulk reducing. Remember, bulk reducing is you got all these ingredients that you need. You got this large volume of supplies that you have to make a smaller finished product, you guys. Okay, bulk gaining. Okay? There's where they're going to locate themselves closer to the market, you guys, or to the consumers, rather than to the inputs, okay? Because you're trying to keep your transportation cost manageable. And that's what you're trying to do in both areas. So bulk gaining industry is when industries are located closer to the market or the consumers than the actual inputs or supplies necessary to make the finished product. Bulk gaining, again, what you're going to learn with that is, again, it's gaining. This is when the finished product is going to have more weight or volume than the amount of supplies that were shipped in to make it. So the finished product is going to have more weight or volume, however you want to say that, you guys, than the amount of supplies that were shipped in to produce it, okay? A lot of times what you're looking at here, and I'm going to give you some examples of bulk gaining where the actual finished manufactured product is going to be greater in volume, greater in mass, greater in weight, whatever you want to say there, you guys. Therefore, you don't want to take it and ship it a long way because it's going to be quite expensive. So here are basically the 4 areas that we're looking at for bulk gaining. The first is fabricated metal factory, okay? Anytime we're talking about an industry that brings together metals, and that's what we mean by fabricated metal factory, it's an industry that brings together metals and other manufactured parts to create a more complex finished product. So you're taking, again, you guys, you can simply put, you're taking a lot of metal and you're putting it together with other parts to create a more complex, bulkier, larger finished product, and that's why you get the phrase bulk gaining, because in the end it's going to be far more cumbersome of a product when it's made than in the beginning when the various supplies were brought in to make it. So an example of some fabricated goods, goods that actually increase in mass or increase in volume, you guys, after they've been finished. Television is a good example of this. Ovens, refrigerators, automobiles, we could go on and on. So again, oftentimes you're going to see these industries closer to the major markets than some of the other ones that we talked about before. Beverage producer, this is another one. Many locations contain, and there's a lot of maps in your chapter on this, you guys, that's going to show you the distribution of fabricated metal factories. Beverage factories, or a beverage producer is going to use locations closer to market. All right. And that's what you want to put down. The beverage producer is going to use locations that are closer to market than anywhere else. Big reason for that is because as a result of this, you guys, what you want to understand, and maybe the result isn't the right word, but for the beverage producers, just one more time, understand that their locations are going to be closer to the consumers or to the large markets, you guys. Understanding when we're talking about supplies, the primary supply is going to be water, you guys. Water is more abundant, spread out or distributed more so than minerals are, you guys. We see water has a greater distribution than typical minerals do. Excuse me for the stutter there. So what we're basically saying with the beverage producers is this, all right? The bottle is unfilled when it's sent to them. It fills up after it's sent to them. So it's going to have a greater mass or a greater weight after the actual water or the liquid or whatever beverage it was that goes into the bottle or into the can, you guys, is going to be greater in mass after the fact. And then throw in the fact that the majority of the beverage is water, you guys, or water-related type of product. It's easier to find water spread throughout the earth than it is for minerals. So they're going to be closer to the consumers because it's going to be a higher transportation cost the more it weighs than the less that it weighs. So nutshell version, probably too much talking about beverage producers there. Single market manufacturers, these are specialized manufacturers. Anytime we talk about a single market, they specialize in one particular product, all right? And oftentimes that particular product is sold to another industry. And the majority of industries, as we mentioned before, are in cities, again, because of the factors of production that we talked about before. Now, single market manufacturers, again, is going to be a specialized manufacturer or a manufacturer that focuses on one specialized product that is usually sold to another industry. So it's one specialized product that is usually sold to another industry. Good example that your book uses, and it is a really good example, would be the zipper industry, okay? So here you got this concept of the zipper and the design of the zipper on various fabrics, you guys. It's going to be closer to the clothing manufacturers because they may realize that they're short on zippers and they got to get their order done and they got to get their product finished. So they don't want to sit there and wait for the zippers to come in. And so this way, if they're closer, these single market manufacturers such as the Zipper Factory is closer to the clothing manufacturers of the industrial region, you guys, they're going to be able to get them their product in what they refer to as just-in-time delivery. Okay, so they talk about just-in-time delivery right here. These are parts that are sent to a producer just moments before they are needed, okay? So parts that are sent to another industry just moments before they are needed to be used. So again, you are able to get that other industry, for example, the clothing manufacturer is going to be able to keep their manufacturing process going, because if they run out of something, they have these single market manufacturers that can quickly get them whatever it is they need. Perishable products, I think this one doesn't need a lot of explanation. Products that must arrive as quickly as possible to ensure the highest quality or satisfaction takes place. They're going to be closer to the markets and the consumers. So if you are making some sort of perishable product, you guys, these products must arrive in a timely manner to ensure their highest quality or satisfaction. So products that must arrive in due time, you guys, or as quickly as possible to ensure the highest quality or satisfaction takes place. That's called perishable products right there. Von Thunen, which was mentioned in our agricultural section, you guys, on chapter 10. The Von Thunen model is a good example of why dairy farms were located so close to the city market. If you remember, that showed where the various agricultural products were in relation to the market or in relation to where consumers were. Dairy farmers were the closest to the city because, again, they had to get their product there in a timely manner. So that's the Von Thunen model when we talk about that. Frozen or canned foods can be located further away. So as we see the food processing industry that we talked about in key issue number 1, as that continues to develop and we see more and more frozen, canned, or processed foods, you guys, they can be further and further away from the market. But when we talk about a perishable product, something that's going to expire in a short period of time, you guys, they want to have those products as close as they can to the city or to the market. Now, one item that's not, most of the time when we think of perishable products, we're talking about food. That's what most of us are thinking about. But another product that is not necessarily a food, but is considered to be a perishable product, is the newspaper. The newspaper, again, is a product other than food that is considered to be perishable. All right, so it's a product other than food that is considered to be perishable. Majority of the newspaper industries, you guys, are going to be in the major cities or in the major markets because the fastest delivery is critical. In this day and age of social media, again, not all social media reports are true, you guys, but in this day and age where news and communication happens at a faster rate than ever before, the newspaper industry, who's already losing subscriptions and already falling behind, they got to get their newspapers out as fast as they possibly can to compete with the social media news that's unfolding. And you can also throw in maybe radio and television as well, but definitely with computerized internet right now, newspapers, they got to be as close as they possibly can to the market, you guys, so they can get their product out in a timely manner where people are still going to be satisfied or interested enough to read whatever they have in print. So the fastest delivery is really, really critical here with the newspaper. So there's an example of a perishable product outside of food. All right, the majority of perishable products, obviously, when we talk about that, is going to be in relation to food. Transportation of products. Okay, different manufacturers use different types of transportation. I think you see that every day, you guys. Different manufacturers are going to use different types of transportation based on cost and efficiency. So they're going to use different types of transportation, and they're basing this on cost and efficiency. So how much is it going to cost them? Because remember, producers want to keep their costs down as much as they possibly can to create a greater differentiation between the cost and the revenue, which leads to higher profits, you guys. So they're considering cost, but they also have to consider efficiency. How fast can they get that product there where people are still going to be willing and able to buy it? There's 4 modes of delivery essentially in the industrial world, you guys. We have trucks, and if you read the section, it's really kind of basic. But when we talk about trucks, it's the most often used. I think that's one thing you want to understand. That's why we see so many semis. We see so much on the interstates, even around the Fargo-Moorhead area right here on the interstates and highways. We're constantly seeing semis because it's the most often used for the transportation of products from one area to another. Okay, it's also the least expensive. The problem with trucks, though, is it might take more time, and then you lose a little bit of that efficiency that we talked about. So you have to measure your cost versus your efficiency, and that's going to be something, again, for those of you that have had economics, will have economics, you'll talk about opportunity cost. So if you use a truck, your costs are going to be down because it's less expensive to transport a product by truck, you guys. Less people to unload the truck. There's less of a finance charge associated with the trucking industry. However, that's all the benefits, but what you're giving up is perhaps maybe arriving at a faster pace than some of the other routes. Trains, we see a lot of trains in this region too, especially because of the advent of the oil industry in North Dakota. This is the most often used, trucks was the most often used. Trains, you guys, are going to be used with products that will take more than a day to ship. All right. The reason why you use trains versus trucks is because most of the time it can go nonstop, you guys, or it doesn't require as many stops, I should say, as a truck does. So this is used with products that will take usually more than 1 day or so. And again, you guys, what we'll take a look at it with is it might be a little bit more expensive than trucks, but there's that's the disadvantage. But the advantage of it is going to be the fact that it's more nonstop than the trucking industry would be. Ships, stating the obvious, okay. This is usually an extended transportation of large, bulky products. So again, you have a lot of large, bulky products, so you need a lot of space to load a lot of these products on in one setting, you guys. A ship takes care of that. Ships also obviously help us to shorten the distance as we have to travel between the oceans when we see the import and export of certain products, you guys, in the shipping industry. Get up by Duluth, which some of you have been to before when I've asked, and many of you have been, you'll know what I'm talking about there. You have a lot of large, bulky type of products that are being transferred across the oceans right there. In regards to North America, this is where you'll find your most frequented shipping routes. So in North America is your most frequented shipping routes. There's more shipping that takes place in and around North America than any other particular place in the world. So when we're talking about distribution or clustering, we're going to see a lot more shipping taking place in and around North America than anywhere else, large part thanks to the United States. Air is the most expensive but the fastest mode of delivery. So again, as a producer, you're trying to consider the cost of what you need to do, but you also have to consider the efficiency in which that product has to get there, you guys. So that's a lot of what we're talking about with situation, you guys. If you're closer to an area, if your location of where you're making your product is not too far from the city market or from the consumers, trucking is available. Okay. If you're further away because you're focusing on the fact that you have so many supplies in that area, but it's going to drive you further and further away, maybe you consider another mode of shipping, such as using air, you guys, or using the air industry it's more expensive. A nutshell version of what I'm trying to say, sorry, I lost my train of thought, is it's more expensive, but it is by far and away the fastest mode of delivery. All right. Most of the time, yes, there are cargo planes, you guys. I do realize that, but most of the time with the airline industry, you're going to see smaller, less bulky type of consumer goods that are being transferred by air to arrive in a quicker amount of time. Now, most of the time, you guys, the modes are going to be mixed. Okay. Classic point. We'll talk about the steel industry tomorrow. When we talk about changing situations, in other words, where one location used to be used, but now you're going to another location because it's better for you for some sort of reason, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But talking about modes are often mixed when we're talking about the modes of delivery from trucks, trains, ships, and air. Great example would be the steel industry back in the day when it was found along the Great Lakes. You saw large amounts of iron ore being shipped in, you guys, to the region of Michigan, to the southern part of Michigan, and you're going to see more and more of that being shipped in. But you also need coal. You need iron ore to make steel, but you also need coal, and that coal would be transferred by train. Okay, so again, two different modes of delivery in order to create your finished product. So when we talk about this, we're talking about another vocabulary term called the break of bulk point. This is the specific location of an industry where the transfer of products may be done in a variety of ways. So when we talk about the break of bulk point, this is the specific, and when we're talking about situation, we're talking about a specific location, and that location is there due to the fact that due to its proximity to other things, you guys. When we talk about break of bulk point, we're talking about a specific location where the transfer of products may be done in a variety of ways. So the specific location of the industry where the transfer of products may be done in a variety of ways, all right, which really allows the producer, supplier to really go through and analyze what will be the most cost-effective ways. So what do we ship in? What do we fly in? What do we transport in by large truck? You get the idea. That's called the break of bulk point. And the steel mills that we talk about tomorrow, you guys, or later on in section 2 here, is going to be a perfect example of that. And again, I told you that they received the iron ore by ship, but they received coal. And so again, you get the concept of again, mixing the modes of transportation up. Essentially, that's your break of bulk point, where you start to factor in what should I do, what's the most cost efficient, when I'm trying to figure all these things out. Speaking as an industrialist. What we'll talk about, you guys, tomorrow, okay, on the next podcast, that'll be part 3. I told you this was going to be quite a long podcast right here for Key Issue 2. When part 3, we're going to talk about changing situations. And if you just want to write that one down, just so you have somewhat of an idea of what we're talking about with changing situations, we're talking about the change of locations from a previously used location to a different location. So we're going to see that the situation is going to change throughout history, you guys. Therefore, different locations are going to be used. So when we talk about changing situations, and remember your definition of situation, when we talked about this before, situation can be defined as being the location of a place in relation to another place. Well, essentially, and how it relates to the transportation, well, we're going to see the locations are going to be changed as a result of, transportation considerations that need to be made. And that's what we're going to spend on the next time. So with that, I know these are a lot of long podcasts. This is going to be the majority of your test is going to be centered around Key Issue 2. So again, keep chipping away at it. Keep working through all 31 questions I believe that there is in the packet. Hopefully this will help you answer some of those. With that being said, we'll talk to you guys later with Key Issue number 2, part 3 coming up later.